I think there is value to having the EFF in Parliament. And I'm going to discuss in this video the value of the EFF in the South African Parliament. You can listen to it and think whether you agree or disagree with them. Is there value to having a strong far left party in Parliament? 7 reasons why I think there's value to having them. Number 1, they energized Parliament. Number 2, they gave a voice and a platform for tough issues to be discussed. Number 3, they held Jacob Zuma and Cyril Ramaphosa accountable. Number 4, they prevent a hard shift to the right, especially neoliberal economic policy adoption mass scale. Number 5, they give dignity to the poor. Number 6, they give a platform for youth leaders. Number 7, they are falsely portrayed as a violent party. I'm going to explore each of these 7 points quickly and try to do it in under 10 minutes. So let's go. The EFF energized Parliament. Every time there's been a State of the Nation address, every time there has been an opening of Parliament, we have seen the numbers of public viewership go up. Part of that is because of the drama that the EFF brings with their filibustering tactics of preventing people from speaking, some of the expulsions and ejections. Those are high drama. But what they've also done is that they've led people to appreciate who are the different who are the different actors in Parliament, who's the Speaker of the National Assembly, who's the Speaker of the National Council of Provinces, that kind of thing. Many people were not aware of the processes of Parliament. They were not watching Parliament before that. And even the parliamentary benches themselves were full of older people who were just sleeping there. It's a fact, they were sleeping. The EFF woke everybody up and allowed a generation of young people to begin to consume political content. You may like drama or you may not like drama, but human nature is such that it gravitates towards drama, and that spectacle that they have created has increased an understanding of civics in South Africa in a way that life orientation could never have done, and that is valuable in and of itself. Number 2, they gave a spotlight on tough issues. One of the biggest things that has not been resolved is land. It's a very emotive issue, and it continues to be an emotive issue. You know, I look at the polls sometimes when they say, what are the top 10 issues that matter the most to South Africans? And oftentimes, land is not top of the list, and I often think that can't be right. Everywhere I go, every time I speak among Black people, one of the biggest things that they discuss is land dispossession and the land injustice. Black people really feel aggrieved by what happened, that they were on this continent farming, living together, cooperating, sometimes in conflict as well, but that the land that they were working on was taken from them. They were pushed to the margins through the Land Act, through the Group Areas Act, through a variety of mechanisms that continue to have Black people living at the peripheries of everything nice, everything commercial in South Africa. Even now, that's painful. And the EFF brought that topic back into the center of the discourse in a way that was necessary, because after several years, because when the EFF came in, it was 2013. So if you think 21 years later, after democracy started, there was slow movement on land. Obviously, from 2014, when the EFF came in, then there was a change in energy, and President Ramaphosa also tried to co-opt the issue and be very progressive in terms of discussing land. We saw books by Toby, etc. But what I'm trying to say is that, but for the EFF, that land issue would have fallen away, and they added urgency to it, which I think was necessary and is still necessary. There's a big crisis of housing in South Africa. There's a big crisis of land ownership, and it's unequal and it's unjust. And we have to find ways that make it work, that don't lead to Zimbabwe or Haiti or any situation where the economy collapses altogether as a result of it. One of the things that was Robert Mugabe's biggest mistake is that he just used an unlawful system of land acquisition, and that caused all of the chaos. But there are reasonable ways that you can get more access to land ownership, more land justice, if you will, without becoming Zimbabwe. So spotlighting that issue, I think, is important. It's an issue that it remains unresolved. At the core of the colonial project was the acquisition of the 4 factors of production, and one of those, as we know, is land. Land is a massive, massive factor of production, and you need it to really be able to give yourselves economic opportunities as a social group, racial group, you name it. That's why they took it, right? So that's number two. Number three, he held Jacob Zuma and not he held, but they held, the EFF held Jacob Zuma and Cyril Ramaphosa accountable. When it was Nkandla time, they did the things. EFF did the most. And at that time, they were being celebrated by Daily Maverick and other publications. They were being celebrated because it was somebody that the media publications had decided that they also thought was not worthy of being the leader of South Africa and should be removed. And when the EFF was doing Babaga Tutuzani, Zuma must fall, whatever they were doing, they were praised. However, when they started doing Palapala, and asking Cyril tough questions about his son and Bosasa as well, the attitude changed, the rules were changed, and some of the things that were done, I think, were wrong towards the EFF, because they are justified in really holding fire to the feet of power in the way that they did. And I think it's important that they did that and continue to do that. That's a valuable contribution, even though, those who like, things to be classy, fancy, this is Santon type of an approach. This is parliament. We don't do that. I think you need energy. And I've seen other parliaments. There's a lot of drama in other parliaments. You've seen the footage. You can go look for drama in parliament. The EFF is not even top 3 in terms of creating drama in parliament and drama in that accountability mechanism. Number 4, they prevent a hard shift to the right in economic policies. Neoliberal economic policies have the impact of creating more marginalization. They create high profits for a few, and they create more inequality and poverty for the many. And you can look at what's happening in America. Inequality is very high. People are struggling to live, but there's a class of people that is having the best time of their lives, earning over $100,000, living very, 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 very large, but the majority are living very, very poorly. And the American model is not the only economic model you can have. There are other economic models, but in America, they leaned in on neoliberalism. The Reagan economics, the Thatcher economics have not worked everywhere where they've been tried. And you do need to have political parties that push back. I am not a socialist, by the way. I believe in ethical capitalism. I'm not a socialist. And the EFF is a socialist organization. I value their contribution. I do. I value their contribution in preventing what I think is not the best school of economic thought that has been produced in the last 70 years. I think that the Chicago School of Economic Thinking, while it gained dominance and prevalence and was adopted, is not the best one. So I value the EFF contribution in that respect, even though I am not a socialist. I am somebody who believes in capitalism. I think it works. But as I said, I value what the EFF is doing. Number 5, I think that the EFF gives dignity to the poor by choosing to deliberately represent them. Wearing those maid outfits, those gardener outfits, those overalls, I think affirms those people in a way that people underestimate and underappreciate. It doesn't matter to me that Julius Malema owns Gucci. It doesn't matter to me that Floyd Shivambu has got whatever, or whatever cars they drive. It matters to me what they choose to represent when they step onto the court. That's the colors that they wear when they step onto the court matter to me. I think for far too long, many people saw representation of the elites, representation of the bourgeoisie, right? The people who eat blue cheese and they eat lobster, caviar, all of this stuff. But nobody saw the representation of the Gogos. Nobody saw the representation of the people who are walking to work every day, who are using trains, who are using taxis. And I think the EFF gave dignity to those people. Sure, they don't all live that life. Sure, they make a lot of money as members of parliament, but representation matters, not only in terms of representation of youth, not only in terms of representation of gender, not only in terms of representation of race, but representation of class as well matters. And many of the people within the EFF are about that life. They are about those ideologies and positions that they stand for. So even though you may see inconsistencies and contradictions, that's not to say there's not a genuine body of the organization that stands for that. Number 6, they gave platform to youth leaders. I think I've seen so many young people get opportunities from Buyiseni Ndlozi, from Vuyani Pambo, from Sihle Lonzi, from Naledi Chirwa. There's such a long list of young people, and I'm classifying young here as people who at the time were under 30 that actually got political opportunities, national recognition, got opportunities to travel the world, to actually participate in the national discourse at a high level because of the existence of the EFF. Prior to this, it was very difficult for young people to find expression at the highest level in the ANC. And even though the DA was giving a lot of people platform, there wasn't another platform that was doing that. And I have to be fair to the DA. The DA was giving lots of young people platform as well, giving Black women platform. Lindiwe Mazibuko, for example. If not for the DA, there also wouldn't have been any pathways for young people to find expression. So there's nothing wrong with what the DA did in that respect. I salute them for that. I was very happy that they gave many young people those opportunities. But in the same vein, I'm very happy that the EFF gave young people those opportunities. Those young people may change their political views as time goes. They may start their own political parties, but they got a platform, training, mentorship within the entity of the economic freedom fighters. Right. So that's number what? Number 6. Right. Then I want to say some things here that are important also to remember. The EFF has got a very, very ambitious and wild manifesto in that its aspirations are so big. They want to pay this particular worker this much, this particular worker that much. And I think there's no feasibility in the budget for everything that the EFF wants. But I also don't think that the EFF manifesto is going to be implemented anytime soon, or that it's even a practical manifesto in that way. It's an aspirational manifesto, right? And if they are going to be coalition governments, I don't think that the EFF will be then say, no, we want you to pay this particular person 12,000 or you're not going to be president. I don't think that they'll do that. I think that they are reasonable, they are common sense people, they're economists in the EFF who understand how things work and the budgetary constraints. And I'm going to use an example. Labour in the UK is a party that has oftentimes been very on the left, and they've been on the left in terms of worker rights, worker payments, etc. But even they are saying, listen, we're not going to be able to roll out our manifesto because there's no money, and we're going to have to work within the constraints of everything that is here. And I think their prospective candidate to be the Chancellor of the Exchequer is Angela Rayner, and she actually has been very sober-minded around what's possible. In any case, I think that those ideas are valuable to have. The manifesto ideas, some of them are very valuable to have. For example, the insourcing of security workers, that's something that the EFF fought for, something that I think was common sense, something that was worth doing. Another example being the 24-hour community centers. I think that was also something that was important to do and execute on. And I think that the EFF was able to do that effectively and to argue for effectively in terms of the 24-hour community centers. The last thing that I want to talk about in terms of the last point that I think is relevant to the EFF. There's some people, Professor Adam Habib, for example, who will attack the EFF and call them fascists. And I've seen many other people who always, I think the DA advert called them the violent EFF. The EFF has a very loud bark. Oh, they bark very loud. They don't bite. They don't bite. And what do I mean by this? If the EFF was a violent party, there would be anarchy in South Africa. They really would. This is a party that went to that school, I can't remember the name of the school, to protest against racism. But really, they were being beaten up by racists, and all manner of funny business was happening. They didn't respond with violence. They didn't retaliate with violence. And to be quite honest, if they really tried to pursue a policy of violence, many of them would be under arrest by now. They've really worked within the constitutional framework. Yes, I want to caveat this by saying sometimes they have ransacked buildings, like during the Clicks protests, I saw them do that. Sometimes they've really been rowdy, but they have not really been violent in the real sense of that word. They've been disruptive, and they've sometimes caused economic costs, because if you break into someone's shop and then you throw things around, there's going to be a cost of cleaning, etc. And possibly those are not good actions. But their portrayal as being a violent party, as if they are advocating for an armed struggle or anything like that, That, I think, is a mischaracterization, and it's misleading. It's a form of fear mongering to the public, simply because you have these people who have taken a posture that is very loud, and a posture that seems aggressive at some level. But I don't think that is a genuine assessment. In any case, I think that there are systems in place to prevent that from ever manifesting. But I think it's an exaggeration when they are characterized as a violent party. They are a far-left party. They are very robust in their engagements. I don't think that they are reasonably considered to be a violent party by people who are fairly analyzing them. So that's what I think is the value of the EFF. Let's have a conversation. What do you think is the value of the EFF, if any, in Parliament and going into the next administration?